Hey, everybody, welcome to the e-commerce documentation podcast. We've got two very special guests for you today. We're here with Andrew and Paul from Ecom Experts. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing? Thanks for jumping on the show.
Thank you for having us, Preston. It's always nice to chat with you.
Thanks for having us, Preston. Indeed,
Of course.
yeah.
Of course. So Ecom Experts, tell me a little bit about what you guys do and how you're helping brands.
Yeah, 100%. Paul, if you want to go ahead or...
Go ahead, Andrew. Yeah. As the CEO.
Exactly. So I'm Andrew. I'm the CEO of Ecom Experts. We have Paul here who's running sales. And what we do, in short, is we specialize development for Shopify brands making over $1 million US a month. So we become their go-to technical and strategy team to kind of have an outside view of what's happening. As a founder, it's always nice to kind of have an external eye and like, oh, okay, well, what's your opinion on this? And that's where we come in.
So what do you see brands getting wrong? What do people need to do to fix their Shopify stores? Are we talking about increasing conversion rates? Is this CRO, site optimization? Like, what's happening with Shopify stores? Because people they download a theme, they throw up their products, and they're like, hey, I'm good to go. Let's make some money. Let's sell some products, right? I'm sure it's not that easy. What exactly do brands need to do?
That's a good question, Preston. So I think it comes down to each individual brand. So every single brand is going to have a different KPI, right? So whether you're trying to focus on your conversion rate, are you trying to focus on your average order value? Are you trying to focus on, more traffic? So it's a very broad question, but it really is different for every different business and the stage in the business where you are.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. What's really funny and why I like business a lot in general is that there's not one way to make it. There's like a million different ways. And we come across store owners that are making millions a month and it's a solo business. They're doing this by themselves and they have no idea about iOS 14. Right. And then you have other people that have huge teams and optimize everything and make a fraction of that. So there's really a million ways to get there. But then there's, of course, the standard ways to the classical advice like Paul just covered.
Got it. So tell me more about you guys, your clients. How big's the team? How many clients do you have? What's kind of your sweet spot in the Shopify ecosystem?
Good question. So right now we have, if you're going to go ahead, Andrew, but we have, I believe, 12 developers right now. So our main focus right now is we're dealing with companies doing at least $1 million a month. So we're a white glove agency. We're focusing on, we're really focusing on your return on investment. We really want to be there for you to help you with your growth. But we are solely a development agency, right?
I think at the end of the day, that's really the important part is that we're here to give you the strategy. We kind of do it because we like it. That's why also we're on this podcast. We just love talking strategy. And it's nice to have someone else's opinion and someone else's view on what's happening with our business. But at the end of the day, our core knowledge is development. We're devs. I've been in the dev world for Shopify specific for over 10 years. I've worked for literally multiple thousands of stores. So we do start seeing like, okay, well, there's trends. Even though every store is unique, there's definitely some major trends that, big stores have, right? And then that's where our strategy kind of comes in then.
Yeah, and I just want to say this is not a pitch by any means for you guys, but we've worked together. I've pulled you into some projects. What you guys have done on site speed is amazing because people cut corners. They might have a developer in-house or that they're working with, and they go, this site's as fast as it's going to be. And then you call Ecom Experts, and they make it lightning fast. I mean, it's shocking what you guys did. It was instant. I mean, I was blown away.
Brilliant.
I would love to know like how many of your people listening to this have actually issues with site speed. And that's not because we want to come and pitch you afterwards. That's just because there is this huge question around site speed and there's so much misinformation about site speed. And there's a lot of scams around site speeds as well. And so we're also, we've been doing this for 5 years, but we've also just figuring stuff out because there's constantly new developments. And we're like, oh, well, apparently this is something we can improve or optimize. in this little area of site speed. So I'm wondering how much is it still an ongoing topic between stores, or is it kind of like because it started 2.5 years ago, I believe, where site speed became big in Shopify, and I kind of wonder what the current state is of Shopify owners regarding site speed.
It's good that you bring that up, Andrew. So, like, you know that I'm sitting here on the phones the majority of the day, talking to merchants, and now that we're leading into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the more people that are just like urgently, they're like, "No, I need to speed up my site." I'm like, "Why do you want to speed up your site?" Obviously, it always comes down to the conversion rate, but like sooner, like the closer we get to the busy season, since we're getting into it, it's like more and more people are interested in this, and being a client of yours in the past, Andrew, it's there's a reason I reached out to you, because it is a hype right now. Like, having a faster site does have a return on investment. There is actual benefits in having a faster site in multiple different ways.
Yeah, no, you don't have to convince me about it, but I'm still sometimes wondering, like, are you reaching out for site speed because your account manager at Shopify told you so, because you saw an article, or because you actually really see the benefits of it and you truly believe, or because you're annoyed by the number on your Shopify dashboard? I feel like some store owners just hate seeing the 5 out of 100.
Right.
And have no idea what it means, but they're just like, I want it gone.
Yeah, that metric really is kind of like, Google page speed, right? Where people are going, "Oh, my store sucks. Like, it's super slow." Like, and it's quantifiably there, right? It's not this like, "Hey, we think you're slower than average." Like, no, you're like a 5 out of 20 in stores. It's like just punching you in the face. Shopify's just like, "Hey, look, like, you suck." You're 5 out of 20, and stores similar to you are at like 15 out of 20 or 10 out of 20. Come on. But I mean,
it's funny because they actually do, though. They compare you to your not just in general, within your industry.
That's right, in your category. That's right. So it is irrelevant, right? And they're going, "You suck. Like, do something, quickly." So let's talk about this. This is a little in the weeds, but I think it's good because I just Googled it. I thought it was more apps. So what do you think the average number of apps a person has on a Shopify store? So it's kind of like, the good and bad with Shopify. The good about it is you've got apps. You can do almost anything with the Shopify store. It's very modular, right? But the bad part about that is you start loading all these apps into your store, you're getting bloat, and you're making your theme files bigger, your product template pages bigger. I mean, the average store has 6 apps, but I'm sure you guys have seen this, and I've seen this. I've seen stores with like 50 apps, 30 apps.
Yes.
On average, for me, I would say probably 20 to 30, where they get all this stuff, and I go, "What are you doing? Do you need all these apps? Let's condense this." And they go, "No, we need all of them." And then you do an audit, and they go, "Actually, we only need like these 10." And you go, "Okay."
And
right?
How much is it?
And
so 50 apps.
Exactly. And I go, and most people, you guys talk to these people all day. They go, "Oh, I didn't realize, like, if I delete the app, it doesn't delete the code. The code's still in there. You've got to go in manually and clean this up, right?" Can you guys talk about this? I mean, this is a huge problem, right?
I would love to. And like, one thing I see, so like, usually before we jump into a site speed optimization with the clients, we like to take a look at their code structure, and we like to take a look at their apps. And so often I see people they have 5 apps for image optimization or like SEO related, like, or like they're basically all doing the same thing. I'm like, well, do you really need all these? Like, yeah, we're using them all. And like me, my past experience working at Shopify Plus directly, I had the privilege of getting free applications. So when I first opened my business, 5 years ago, which I recently sold, I had like 50 in there at one point because I wasn't paying for them. But yeah.
Wow.
It really does add up. And then the original idea behind the fact that the code stays, because that's something when you explain it to people, they're like, "Oh, that's why the code stays." So back in the days, it wasn't like that. And then what happened is people would leave a 1-star review on a bad app, but the developer still had access to your store and could come in and be like, "Well, you're leaving me a 1-star review. Well, here we go." And would just get rid of absolutely everything. So Shopify was like, "Well, this is a liability. Obviously, this can't happen. So we're going to switch the system. As soon as you install the app developer loses all access to the store." But that has the downside of any code that the app injected, that bridge is immediately cut. So they can go like, "Okay, well, let me remove my code into your store as well." So that has been an issue for like a relatively long time. And with 2.0, there have been advances into addressing this, but it's still not quite there yet. And so that's one of the reasons people just, they don't realize it. So they install apps and all that code just adds up, adds up, adds up. And then they're like, oh, I haven't used the Hotjar in 20 years. Well, yeah, there you go. It's
something I've
seen
as well. It's like something I've seen as well, like is a lot of the apps, they have like, 7-10 day trials. So like, okay, well, I'm just going to install this, see if it works for me. But at that point, this code is already injected into your theme. So how many times have you done that, as a merchant, right?
So, and look, everybody's lazy, but developers specifically, hey, look, the site's working. There's nothing wrong. But what you guys do, and why I like you specifically, is you go in and, a lot of brands hate monthly recurring stuff, subscriptions and different agencies and all this. And I hate agencies too. And I am an agency, right? But this is one of those, you've got to be watching it every month because somebody on the marketing side or in sales or in the back end logistics is installing things because they need it to connect a system, and then it's slowing down your website. And so you do start to creep back in where it slows you back down and you go, what happened? And then you guys on your monthly audit go, oh, well, you installed this new app and it's injecting this. And you can basically do what we were doing years ago on WordPress sites where you control what's loading on what pages. And if you don't need it, don't load it, right?
Yeah, correct. That's 100% that. That's spot on. And the thing is that I always make the comparison with a house, that you have to clean up your house or your apartment like once in a while, right? Well, the same thing happens to your code. The thing is, as a store owner, you're not always in your code, so you don't realize how messy it is. And before I was a developer, like a long time ago, I actually had a Shopify store myself for a brief moment, and I hired all of these developers. And it did click with me at some point that like, okay, well, I hired 7 different developers at this point. It's probably pretty messy. I would like it to be clean, the code. So I'd hired a developer to kind of clean up the code, but that's a very vague like to do. So they're like, yeah, sure, I guess I cleaned it up. I mean, there's 250,000 lines of code. They're like, yeah, whatever. You paid me for 3 hours. Right. I guess I did a little cleanup. So, and that was kind of the bottom line. So when I started to develop, I was like, okay, well, what if, how does site speed work? Okay, this is how it works. It's actually basically having a really clean code base. And so what does it take to keep a site fast is just write clean code that's really well structured. And that's really going to help. And so that's why we also went from just doing the site speed to be like, okay, now that your code base is clean, let us help you with, just we'll write all the code. That way, it's structured, it's clean, and your site will stay fast. And I think that's really important. If you're listening to this, even if you don't want to deal with us, that's fine. But I do have a piece of advice, which is try to stay with one developer. Even if you're still with freelance developers and it's something urgent and your go-to freelance developer is busy, try to be like, okay, well, maybe I can delay it for my go-to developer to really stay my one developer, instead of being like, okay, well, I found this other guy who can do it immediately. Try to have that continuity. Have like one engineer build the skyscraper and not like 50 different engineers that don't talk to each other.
Yeah, good point. So this is something, I mean, how important is the theme that you pick for your Shopify store? Can you guys talk about this? And I think there were some upgrades in the Shopify technology here recently. Does it really matter? Is it not that big of a deal? What have you guys seen? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. So like, it comes down to a few things. So like, you need to look at your business as a whole. Are you selling one product, Preston? Or do you have a huge collection of, a huge inventory, basically, a lot of SKUs. So like right off the bat, you can see immediately like which theme is going to be more directed towards my business. And from that, you also have to look like, unless you're a developer, you want to hire a developer, can I kind of make this fit into my branding? Right. But you're completely right, though. So now with the new release of Shopify 2.0, a lot of people are just going on to Dawn and they're customizing it, and it's, pretty fast right out of the bat. But I think for me, like the question is, it's just like, my main thing, like when I worked at Shopify and I would speak to people, I'd be like, wow, how many SKUs do you have? And that's kind of like my main starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I like that.
the main quality of every theme that's on the theme store, I can't say because I have a Dutch accent, so apparently I can't say theme. I say team. Anyway,
Theme.
every theme that's on the theme store is from really good base dev quality. So it's not like that there is any, except if you go off Shopify store, that's a different story. But the main, quality of the code of the main themes in the store are really good quality. It's what you do after that starts mattering, and where we see things go horribly wrong.
Yeah. No, 100%. So talk to me about some of these cool things, like what brands are doing with content on their website. How important is that for what you guys are doing? Because having a fast loading website's great, but if you don't have the right content there, is that important?
I think we're
I believe it is. Like in regards to content, are you referring to like the copy on the website, Preston?
Copy, images, product details, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
so basically, at the end of the day, like there's an expression, KISS: keep it simple, stupid. Right. So you there's a book. It's called Don't Make Me Think, and like you want everything to be as straightforward. You don't want people looking for products. You want your direct brand messaging to be straightforward, to the point, as on load as soon as they come to your homepage, and also followed into obviously the collection page and product pages as well. But you want to keep it simple. Like you don't want to distract people with too much copy they're never going to read. Just so many distracting images. Keep it simple.
There was an awesome service. I don't know if you guys remember this. It must have been like 8 years ago. There was a dude, and his service was, I'm gonna get slam hammered drunk, and I'm gonna go to your website, and I should be able to check out. If I can check out slam hammered drunk, you have a good website. And then he offered another service where he said, I'm gonna let my 80-year-old grandmother check out on your website. If she can check out on your website, then you have a good website. And I always thought that was he also had to stop doing this because he's like, yeah, well, I'm gonna have an alcohol problem if I keep doing this. But it's a good way to think about it.
He's getting 100 referrals a day.
Yeah, slam hammer. But it's a good way to think about it. It's like
it generally is, though.
Yeah. At 4:00 in the morning, if you're hammered and you can pass through your checkout process, and it's when you start thinking about it that way, you start realizing how many stores. It's like, I want to give you my money, but you're really doing everything for me not to land on the checkout page. You're doing pop-ups and redirects and more info and contact us and about us. And it's like, dude, I just want to give you my credit card information. Like, what are you doing? So yeah, it's pretty important on that. So to everyone listening, get drunk tonight.
Preston's halfway there. But
more than
half.
The
most important thing though is just clear messaging and just like straight to the point. Like make it very, very user friendly. And it's funny. So like kind of into a real world topic here. So I'm not going to name names, but I did have a meeting with a company today, and it took me like 5-10 minutes to actually figure out how to get to the not actually just the checkout, to the product page. One was like, learn more information.
Wow.
Buy now, and then it bring you to the product page. And I was like, wow, like there's human psychology behind it. It's like you realistically have 2 clicks before you lose a customer's attention. Right. So I saw it today and I was like, I can't name names, of course, but it's just like, and they are a big brand. And I was confused by this.
That's fascinating. Yeah, 2 or 3 clicks max to get to checkout, give you my money, and make it easy with Shop Pay, right? Or I can just put in my phone number, it bills me, right? Like, let's go. This is simple. Make it happen.
It's that important. Agreed. Like back in the days, Amazon actually tried to copyright the one-click checkout, like to patent it. And there were like huge lawsuits about this because they were like, well, you can't patent a one-click checkout. But they understood that it was so important to just being able to check out with just 1 click that they had like pretty huge legal battles across for this because of they were like, this is the moneymaker. One click and it's, checkout. So no, it's really important.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's some, and this kind of bleeds into marketing a little bit, but it's like, people create their website or brands create their website based on these templates, right? And you're missing a couple crucial things. I need to know exactly what the product does. You're not showing me the features or benefit of the product. You've got a stock photo or a photo you took in a light box that looks really great. It's a beautiful photo. I have no idea what the product will actually do for me and if it'll work for me. I don't know, number two, when I'm going to get it. Am I going to get it in a week, a month, 2 days, based on my location? Not you. Tell me when I'm going to get it, not in the U.S. And when am I going to get it based on my zip code, right? Those are the other big things. And then, are there any other accessories that I'm going to need to use this product? Or I might want to buy something else, or I might want two, I might want three. Who knows, right?
Like, you just nailed like leading into Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So like one of the biggest things we talk to our clients right now, Preston, is exactly those things. Is it in stock? When is it going to arrive? Because we're going into the the holiday season. It's a gift. Am I going to get it in time to give it to my aunt or my uncle or my girlfriend? And so that's really important right now, especially this season. And the next thing is like you said, is the accessories on the product page, but not just on the product page, but also making sure it's on the cart page. And if you're on Shopify Plus, which the majority of your listeners are you utilizing your checkout page as well? And going one step above that, there is one email that is open 200%, and it's the confirmation email. Are you utilizing that for upsells at that point?
The shipping tracking email.
Dropping bombs. This is juicy. This is juicy stuff right here. Big money here. Andrew,
it's what we do, Preston.
It's the to add to that, there was this one guy. It was from which app company again? And they were like, yeah, we have an email sequencing, and one of our emails opens like, it was a ridiculous amount, like 800% or something like that. And I'm like, how do you have you're lying to me. How do you have an 800% opening rate? Like something absurd.
Right.
And it was like, well, it's the tracking for like, your package has been shipped. Click here for the tracking number. And he's like, that's the email where you should have upsells and cross sells, because everyone wants to know, how often do you're like, oh, where's my package at now? Or where's my package? Oh, it's at the border. Oh, it's there. Okay. It's an email you open multiple times, and yet very few companies put upsells and cross sells in that email. Why? I don't know, but it's right there. So I was like, oh, that's smart. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah. If you're not utilizing that, you need to do it right now. Call Ecom experts.
We'll set it up for you.
So going backwards real quick. So Paul, you used to work at Shopify. You had your own brand, right? And
Correct,
Andrew,
yes.
I want to hear your story as well, but tell us about that and how you wound up here. How did we get here?
Me first or Andrew?
Paul, you
Dealer's
go ahead.
choice.
Take it away. I'll take it away. Yeah, so no problem. So many years ago, I was traveling quite a bit, and I needed a way to make money. So I started building online stores. So I got really, really familiar with Shopify. And long story short, one night, maybe after a few too many beers, I see somebody post something on LinkedIn about their hiring people for Shopify, and I was like, okay, I know the platform quite well. Sure, let's apply and see what happens. Next thing you know, I was in downtown Medellin because the internet stopped working in my house, and police sirens going everywhere. I'm trying to do an interview with Shopify Plus, and they're like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm in downtown. I'm in Central Medellin right now." They're like, "Oh, okay. Well, this is a really interesting interview." Long story short, had quite a few good interviews with them. They brought me on board. When I first jumped on board, I was working for Merchant Success, so I was, giving advice, kind of like just like we're talking about now, with increasing conversions and just issues with the website in general. And then eventually I moved. That didn't last long. And then I moved to Shopify Plus, and they moved me down. So they moved me down from Vancouver down to Waterloo, and I spent a few weeks there. Then like, well, Paul, you're going to Europe. I was like, oh. okay, I'm going to Europe. They're like, you're going to grow out the sales team, and I'll grow out the Shopify Plus in general in Europe. So we had our office in Soho in London, and I was based in Dublin because a lot of our MSMs were based in Dublin at the time. And so I did that for quite a few years. We did very well, and now Shopify Plus is quite huge in Europe. And at this point in my, back then it wasn't as big as it is now, but it's getting really big there now. But during that period, I started building up a website. Then eventually, after a few too many lost hairs per se, and too many hours working, and hired employees, I was able to replicate my salary that Shopify was paying me, and brought the business up over 5 years to over $10 million. And I'd made the decision of just, do I want to continue working on Shopify, doing what I'm doing, or do I want to focus on my own brand and really spend the time that I need to with my employees to help my business grow? During that process, I met Andrew and became a client of his. And after working so many hours, 15, 16 hours a day for 7 days a week for so many years, I decided to sell my business and took my little semi-retirement before asking Andrew if he, which was the company I was aligned with, because I saw the quality work they were doing. You'd be surprised that sitting beside a pool in Bangkok drinking beer all day, you get bored.
Yeah.
But you do. So I reached out to Andrew. I was just like, yeah, Andrew, I'd love to join the team. Like, I know the quality work you guys do, and I worked with many partners at the time, but Andrew and Ecom Experts was a company that was producing incredible work for me personally that I've seen. And so it's a company I was aligned with, and the rest is history.
And he's still.
And how many years ago was that?
Yeah, I'm still in Colombia at the moment right now, but I am Canadian. But how many years ago was that? So I had the business for 5 years. So it did. I was growing it at the same time working on Shopify, of course, and then I sold it in January, and I got sick of drinking pina coladas by the pool. What time did I reach out to you, Andrew? February, March, April,
something like that.
Maybe.
And then you started joining. Well, you came on full time in around April, I believe.
Around April, yeah. So just for the record, for your listeners, if you ever sell your business, about 8 weeks is enough. You're going to get tired of drinking beers beside the pool before you want to jump.
Really, that's it?
Else.
8 weeks.
That's it, Preston. Then you're bored of it. You're ready for something next.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and so, well, I guess on my side.
So, Andrew, how'd we get here? How'd you get here, man?
Yeah, sorry. I think because I moved in the middle of nowhere in Canada, and I think that my internet is sometimes a little bit slow. But so on my side, long story short, I'm originally from Belgium. I moved to Canada like 2010. And I started working for a whole bunch of companies, including a brand called Luxury Retreats. Grew that from was part of the core team there. Ended up selling that to Airbnb. So that was fun. And then from there on, I was like, oh, okay, well, let's start my own shoe store, because why not? Ended up buying a factory in center of Mexico, not the fun beach Mexico, but the heart of the Mexican desert. And started selling shoes on Shopify.
Was it a shoe factory or what? Was it?
Yeah.
What did the factory do?
100% shoes, men and women shoes. I knew nothing about fashion or shoes.
Love it.
I didn't even speak Spanish. I was like, yeah, let's do this.
This is an epic story already. Okay.
But you learn where to find cheap leather.
Yes, exactly. So I met a random person, and they told me, oh, you want to do shoes? You have to go to León, Mexico. And I was like, never heard of it, but sure, why not? Here we go. One-way plane ticket. So I was selling the shoes from Mexico using Shopify. And that's where I went back into doing development work, because I've always been around dev work. But I was like, okay, this is interesting. I hired freelancers, this and that. Eventually, selling fashion, not my thing. It's really hard, all with the sizing, with the customs. It wasn't easy. So at the end of the day, we did B2B also in shoes. Some things went wrong on the B2B side. But I was able to sell the factory. And I briefly owned a horse ranch in Mexico, but that's not scalable. So I was like, yeah, no, not doing this.
Who are you?
I flew back to Canada, and then I started doing dev work. I started on StoreTasker, actually, with John Kennedy from like Hey Carson. Really grew on StoreTasker a lot. I think I was doing like 1 out of 2 jobs of the entire StoreTasker platform at some point.
Wow.
And then was like, well, let's just start my own team and start building out a very solid dev team. And then there was one thing that I was like, I really want to nail this speed thing because we get a lot of requests for it, but most devs don't want to touch it. So I was like, okay, well, here's a challenge that's different from shoes or horses. So let's try to understand this. And then, yeah, over like 5-6 years of just doing site speed and development work, the team grew. And I think we're one of the few teams in the world that's really good at site speed at this point. So yeah, that's kind of how it all came about. It's a weird story.
No, love it. That's a great story. And real quick, are you guys okay on time?
Yeah, we're good on time.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Andrew, you good on time?
We're good. Yeah.
Something I want to kind of jump back.
The horse ranch is calling. No, it's the warehouse there.
Yeah. But no, it's been great though. So like since we've been working so closely with Shopify over the years, my experience with Shopify. So now we have the privilege and we do all the site speed training for the MSM teams, which is really great. So yeah,
that's fun. One thing I learned
that's beautiful.
That can maybe help any listeners out there is that while doing my shooting in the middle of Mexico, I was selling B2C. And the selling B2C, like, it's not easy with ad space, and you spend a lot of money trying to reach one customer and this and that. And then one person was like, this was during the American Apparel ordeal. I don't know if you remember this with Duff Charney and all of this, everything that happened around that. And he's actually from Montreal. And so I met people from American Apparel here.
Okay.
And they were like, yeah, well, the American Apparel that is actually just a fraction of the American Apparel. The most of the money comes from B2B. And I said, well, wait a minute, really? They're like, yeah. All our money comes from like people that just want the white label t-shirts. And that's where, American Apparel makes most of their money. And then the stores, are just like cherry on the cake. And that led me to kind of look deeper into it. And most brands really, they have B2B that keeps their light on. And then they have B2C that's kind of like, that's what I buy the yacht with in Monaco. And it's kind of a thing that we're telling our clients now. They come to us and I'm like, okay, cool. You have the entire B2C site set up, but where's your B2B to kind of get rid of those seasonality fluctuations, and whether that's white labeling or working with contractors, or there's a million different ways to do it. But I always a big proponent of B2B in Shopify.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so is this, and for the Shopify Plus people listening, the wholesale channel is I feel like one of the most underused pieces of Shopify Plus, because you can set that up. You can control who gets in there with accounts, passwords, however you want to set that up, right? MOQs, you can curate the products that are in there. I mean, nobody talks about it ever.
No one.
I think the reason is, so like me, like coming from Shopify Plus. So like,
yeah,
when I was selling Shopify Plus, the B2B channel is not what it is today. It is significantly improved now. So before, companies would come in and their account manager or their launch engineer would be like, actually, you're better suited to use this application for B2B. But no, like they've done some great work with the B2B channel. I think it's only going to get better. So I'm excited to see that. But yeah.
Yeah, you're saying use like a third-party app on the App Store versus now the Shopify wholesale app that's from them.
Exactly. So even in the past, their native B2B wholesale was not incredible. They have put a lot of work into it. I believe they launched like some updates. a few months ago. I don't know the exact date, but it's getting better and better and better. They realize that these customers, they do need to do this, so it's only
growing up.
So right now, like they're realistically, they're growing up.
And also, like most people that use Shopify and that like grew to like $1 million or plus a month, they started with B2C. So they never really considered like, oh, wait a minute, there's this huge industry out there that's B2B and it's like stable and it's like fixed contracts for a year and it gets rid of all of those seasonality fluctuations. And they're not quite aware of it. So I guess Shopify never really focused on it. But it's great to see that it's coming and people realizing there's a lot of money in B2B.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, Paul, you used to work at Shopify. You got a close relationship with them. Andrew, are you guys exclusive Shopify developers, or do you do other?
100%, yeah. So like, there's so many agencies out there, and they focus on Magento, they focus on cloud commerce. But what makes us special, what makes us very good, and our developers good, is that they're solely trained on Shopify. Right. So it's like we really niche down specifically for this. Like we're not interested in dealing with BigCommerce and Magento and so on. Unless you want a migration, then we can have a conversation. But our developers, we're Shopify devs, 100%.
So somebody told me this the other day, and you guys can appreciate this, and so will the listeners, I'm sure. But somebody told me the other day that Shopify, Canadian company, great company, right? They make their money. It's really a payments company that has an e-commerce side.
Yeah, of course.
Because Shopify payments, the volume going through there and their fees, that's where all their revenue comes from.
Do you want me to elaborate?
Agree? Yes, please.
Cool. So 100%. So obviously before, like they don't want you using a third-party gateway. They go as far as saying that if you use Shopify payments, we're even going to cut your PayPal fees. They benefit from using Shopify payments. Now, what has happened since Shopify payments? Quite a few things. Now we have Shopify Capital. They're making money on Shopify Capital now as well. There's so many different aspects, and now they're also doing fraud prevention. So, so good. Yeah. So like, there's so many different aspects now where they're trying to get like, it's omni-channel. Like there's multiple streams of income for them, and yes, and at the end of the day, they are what's the word for it? But like they're setting everything up for like any Joe starting up their first entrepreneurial journey, but like they have so many different sources of income at this point, whether it be through the App Store, or through Capital, or through Shopify payments, through all these aspects.
One thing I've always kind of been, and this is not to diss on Shopify because I love them, but I've always kind of been like, oh, that's too bad. That I don't think even if you're on Plus, their percentage that they take per transaction is not that much lower than if you go directly with Stripe. And I was like, well, you guys have so much volume. For sure, you negotiated something with Stripe that's way lower. Why can't you make it a no-brainer and be like, listen, there's Stripe that's going to charge you, 2.4 or whatever. And no matter what, we will beat that price. And if you do that, then Shopify Plus becomes an absolute no-brainer. And now it's like, exactly. We're beating it.
That's really good to bring up, kind of, Andrew. But it's like, so obviously we all know that Shopify Payments is hosted through Stripe, right? But there gets to a point. So when you're on Shopify Plus, your fees go down a little bit, and there actually comes a threshold. I don't know the exact number. I can let you guys know.
Oh, really?
That whenever you do over this amount, when you go over this amount in sales, Shopify Plus pays for itself just from the cheaper transaction fees. So there is an aspect in that. And
it was I did the calculation one day. I think it was 2 million a year. It's actually quite low, but there is a caveat that the full amount needs to go through Shopify payments. So not PayPal and not like things like that. It needs to be, and
correct.
That's where a lot of Shopify advanced people are like, well, half of it is coming through PayPal. So it still doesn't make sense for me. But if you do more than, I think it was 2 million a year, it was a no-brainer to move to Shopify Plus.
Yeah, it paid for itself. Now you get all the extra benefits of Shopify Plus, and it paid for itself.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, you guys in your business dealing with brands that do over $1 million a month, that's 12 million a year, right? If I'm
Yeah.
paying 0.03%, that's $360,000 a year just to take payments. So if you go, hey, I could work a deal, and look, this is getting in the weeds a little bit on payments, but if somebody uses a debit card, that's 0.5%, 0.5% is what the actual cost is, but they're still hitting you for that 3%. So that's where they make a little bit of margin, right? But if you go, hey, look, if I had my own processor and I had my own gateway, I could take my own payments on Shopify through somebody else, not Shopify payments. But I think the Shopify payments user base is big in the US specifically, but it's like over
Huge.
50 million people. So you're going to
Yeah.
lose that quick checkout and the drop in conversions just on that. If people have to go through all those fields, credit card number, billing address, shipping address, even with some autocomplete there, I think you're gonna see that go down.
100% the conversion will go
100%.
down. Absolutely. And not just like in the USA, like, so we saw huge increases in the UK, especially in Ireland, Australia. And now they're dropping like once a week. They're like, this country is now available for Shopify payments. Like, so they're doing a huge job with that. Like, they're doing good.
Okay. So talk to me about USA customers versus international. What do you see where brands get it wrong? What do they need to do? How can they fix the customer experience, the buying experience? I think really internationally, because everybody focuses on US, right? What do
Yeah.
brands need to do for their international strategy?
It's funny because right here, I'm based right now in Montreal, Canada, right? And I talk to a lot of, especially French people from France, and we all have our clients in the US. And every time we're like, and this is not to toot the US's horn because I don't think you guys need it, but it's like you're a step ahead, especially when I was looking at just the entire e-commerce or the entire tech perspective landscape in the US. It's really a step ahead. Yesterday I was looking at salaries. The average salaries for US developers 120,000 US. For someone in the Netherlands or France, it's 46,000 US. So that kind of shows
that low. Wow.
Yeah, that kind of shows the difference in like how important tech is in a company's ecosystem. So it's kind of hard to say like, okay, well, what are other countries doing that much better? Because the US is really at the spearheading it. What I can say is that, and I think I had a huge conversation about this not too long ago. You want to adapt to the culture of it. So it's not necessarily like, oh, there is a new feature or then there's a new way. It's very important that if you're like, okay, let's say like I want Western Europe to really become an important market for me, you need to hire people in your marketing and design for that are based in Western Europe, that understand how, Western Europe communicates, because the communication, so this is really design and copy, is just different depending on where you want to do it. And I see a lot of marketing agencies, for example, try to grow and then they get a whole bunch of talent from India. And because they're like, well, a copywriter, writing copy in the US or India, it's kind of the same thing. Well, it's not. It's like there's these really, it's just your phrasing is different, and you're not going to hire an Indian dude to go sell in the US. Vice versa, I wouldn't hire a US dude to go sell to someone in Bangalore or India. So when you want to grow in different markets, it's important that you pinpoint the market you want to grow in, and that you then hire, even if it's just one person from that area that really knows the culture, and kind of let them come up with the ideas.
Agreed. So the way I like to look at it is like we call it localization. So you want to localize to where your clients are. So I'm not going to name any names, but like I know a really good brand based out of the UK, and they wanted to move into Germany. Yes, their theme was very similar, but the copy, the images, and everything was so different. And like at the end of the day, it's like it is localization. Like me sitting here, if I was in Canada as an example, like I'd like to see Canadian prices as an example. That's just one aspect of localization. But it really comes down to like the copy, the images, the pricing being in the right currency, not a currency converter, but like if you're on Shopify Plus, use your expansion stores. That is why they are there.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a little more technical, but for brands, I think you just touched on something that's huge. It's not just auto translate for that, geo, if you will, right? So for somebody, and I don't know, I don't know about Canada. You guys can school me on that, right? Um, but like for France, you should have like a French version. Should you do a subdomain like fr.domain.com, or what is the best way to set that up? Like you said, with the new store, so clone your store, make it French friendly, but optimizing it for that geo. What specifically do people need to do?
Okay, so one thing is like I said, so use the expansion store. So like if you're in the UK, .co.uk. If you're in Australia, .co.au. Use those local domains. And from that, as an example, let's just say you were selling in somewhere in Southeast Asia. Are you going to have pictures of a bunch of Canadians wearing the outfits? No, probably not. You're going to probably want people that are based in those locations. Yeah, in the snow. You're going to want different imagery as well. So just localize.
One thing I would
preferably have your products shipping from that country's warehouse if you can, right?
Yeah, 100. I actually every time,
yes, 100%.
When I buy things online, I'm like, okay, well, I know you ship, but do you ship to Canada? Because the border in Canada always charges fees, and it's such a pain. But another thing I would also like to add to all of this is what you can absolutely do is say, okay, well, I'm selling really well in the US right now. Great. I want to expand, but I'm not really sure why. And I'm talking to actually Dan John. It's a European clothing brand. And I'm trying to explain to him, like, listen, you're pretty much everywhere in Europe. You have a lot of brick and mortar presence. What you can easily do is you can simply put a translator on your site. Don't use the expansion stores just yet. And after 2-3 months, see, okay, which areas is it working? Like, which areas am I getting traction? Oh, it turns out Germany is getting a little bit of traction. Oh, I didn't know that. Now you're focusing on Germany. You're hiring one German guy. You're opening your expansion store. Now you have like German marketing, German, like the entire spiel. And then from there, you can see, oh, well, turns out Berlin is not working at all, but Hamburg is really going really well. Maybe I should open a pop-up store there or a brick and mortar store. And that's kind of how you can expand from like, okay, well, I'm in the US. I know nothing about the rest of the world for now in my market. You start with translating, then you hire, and then you move it up that way. And it's not just US, but every country has the same issue. And I think the biggest mistake that I see happening every time is like, oh, I know Americans. I've been to New York twice. I can sell to New Yorkers. And then, no, you can't. I'm sorry. You probably can't.
Buy this shirt, you get a free slice of pizza.
So yeah, that would be my.
That's funny, but it's so true. Yeah, like even for U.S. stores, Canada's a huge market, and you guys are right. I mean, it's kind of a mess where you could order something and you don't know what you're going to be charged in some cases on duties, taxes, import fees, right? So brands, and it's become a lot easier recently to show that and collect that and remit it through Shopify. They've done, I think, a great job of updating their system on the tax collection part of that to do that. Those types of things where it'll sell right through the border and go directly to you, Andrew, potentially, instead of, wait, we've got to look at this. Now you've got to pay because I just bought something from Japan and they're going, if you don't pay this now, we're going to send it back to them through DHL. Like, you've got to pay right now. And I'm going, this is crazy. Like, well, okay, I guess, like, you're holding me hostage here. Or you're gonna, there's a watch. You're going to ship it back. I'm going, I guess I have to pay. Like, but when I bought it, I didn't know I had to pay, a couple $100 and duties and fees. They go, there might be something, there might not. And I'm going, okay, well, is it a couple $100? Is it $1,000? It depends on the category, the item. It's all messed up.
It generally is.
It's crazy.
And for me being in Colombia, recently I bought something from the USA. Maybe it was about $1,000. It got stuck in customs. Then they send me to this tiny little, place here in Tuna, and I had to pay $280 to get it back. I was like, holy shit! Like, if I knew this, I generally wouldn't have purchased the product. But and that's why localization and shipping directly from that country is so important. It's huge.
Yeah, because there is a friend of mine used to work for a lawyer importer like that. there's a whole business. Then you hire those guys and they say, well, okay, are your soles from your shoes, are they made of leather? Yes. No, there's import duties on that. Is there even 1% of polyurethane in there? Well, I guess there is. Yeah, there is. Okay, great. No, polyurethane components, zero imported duties. You're like, what? So if you start doing bulk because you're localized, you can work with these people that specialize in it, and then that changes the entire game.
Beautiful. All right, is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up before we close it down here?
Let's say
Andrew?
Black Friday's coming up. Make sure to sell to previous people that have signed up. Don't go get cold new audiences. Focus on B2B. Well, consider focusing on B2B. Never forget to upsell and cross-sell. Clean up your dev store. If you need to speed it up or if you need a reliable developer team, give us a call and enjoy the holidays.
Wonderful.
That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, e-commerce experts, thanks for listening.